Welcome to the deep dive, where we take a complex stack of source material and, well, we don't just summarize it, we immerse ourselves. Our goal is to extract those essential nuggets of knowledge and insight so you walk away truly well-informed, often about things you never knew you needed to know.
Right.
Today, we are wading into the deep, dark, psychological waters of the American Army post in peacetime. We're focusing on a tragedy involving an entanglement of 7 very disturbed, very unique people.
It's a fascinating study in contrast, really. The author establishes the setting as one of extreme, almost suffocating routine.
Oh, absolutely.
You're presented with these, concrete barracks, neat rows of identical officers' homes, a rigid, monotonous pattern of life.
Right.
Yet this sterile environment is merely a cage for these explosive, grotesque, and utterly unconventional internal lives. The exterior is dull, but the human spirit trapped within is anything but.
That's the core paradox we're unpacking today. Our source material sets the stage for a tragedy that is purely character-driven, involving this just bizarre convergence of fate. Yeah.
And the cast of players is immediately listed. It's 2 officers, a soldier, 2 women, a Filipino, and a horse.
And when you see that list,
Well,
a horse,
yeah.
you know this isn't about military strategy.
Exactly. When your dramatis personae includes a specific soldier, 2 deeply troubled women, and a horse, you know you are witnessing a story where psychology outweighs procedure.
It signals immediately that this is a closed system. It's a pressure cooker where the military hierarchy provides the rigidity and repression provides the heat.
That's a great way to put it.
We are looking at a story where these deep hidden obsessions and neuroses are the driving forces behind a catastrophic, violent climax. We have to understand each of these characters in detail to see how their flaws led to the final inevitable tragedy.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack the central opposition that really defines this narrative. The soldier and the captain. We should start with the soldier, the unsuspecting focus of an officer's consuming obsession. Private Ellgee Williams.
His initial description is crucial because it immediately places him outside the realm of, standard human society.
He is physically striking, yet profoundly silent. The source gives us this round, sunburned face, full red lips, and eyes that are a curious blend of amber and brown, sometimes called gold brown.
But the real kicker, the critical psychological detail, is that mute expression that is found usually in the eyes of animals.
Exactly. That detail just sets him apart. It's like he's more connected to the elemental world than to the social structure of the post.
And his physicality is also designed to be deceptive, right? The source notes that his appearance suggests a kind of heaviness.
Right, but in reality, he moves with the silence and agility of a wild creature or a thief.
Yes.
This ability to seemingly materialize and disappear, which is just part of his nature, is what ultimately makes him such a terrifying figure to the neurotic captain.
And his personal habits just reinforce the sense of separation. He keeps entirely to himself.
Completely. He abstains from all the common soldier vices. No smoking, no drinking, no gambling, and specifically, no fornication.
His only leisure activity is retreating into the vast, wild 15-mile square reservation.
Yeah, a place of giant virgin pines, many varieties of flowers, and even such shy animals as deer, wild pig, and foxes. He clearly prefers the company of untamed nature to the rigid world of the barracks.
And it's his competence, ironically, that seals his fate.
How so?
Well, because of his particular skill and affinity for horses, he's assigned to permanent, stable fatigue duty.
Ah, okay, so that's the mechanism. That's what eventually places him in direct, unavoidable contact with Captain Penderton in his quarters.
Exactly. His natural competence puts him right on the officer's path.
So let's turn to the officer himself, Captain Weldon Penderton. The source labels him the brilliant coward, which is just a contradiction in terms that perfectly encapsulates his entire existence.
And their first interaction, which the captain never forgot, was so trivial but catastrophic to Penderton's delicate ego.
Right, the coffee incident.
Williams was briefly serving as a striker. And for you listening, a striker was essentially a soldier assigned to an officer as a personal servant. During this time, Williams accidentally spilled coffee on the captain's new, costly Chinese silk trousers, leaving a permanent, visible stain.
And the captain harbored this deep, abiding resentment over this small, accidental injury.
It seems so small.
It is, but that permanent stain on his expensive silk trousers symbolizes the sudden, chaotic intrusion of the animalistic, uncontrolled world of Williams into Penderton's meticulously controlled aesthetic life.
So it was a seed.
A seed of resentment that quickly blossoms into a full-blown obsession. And when we examine Penderton's core psychology, we realize why such a small incident could have such a profound impact.
Okay, tell us more about that psychology. The source details his extraordinary intellectual capacity. I mean, he's fluent in 3 languages, has this encyclopedic knowledge about everything from astronomy to the digestive apparatus of a lobster.
He even knows the life history of a trilobite.
Right. But the analysis states that despite all this data, he is fundamentally unable to form an idea.
And this is the core tragedy of Penderton's mind. An idea, as defined by the source, isn't just information. It's the fusion of 2 or more known facts, and that fusion requires courage.
And he has none.
He possesses the facts, the raw material, but he lacks the moral and emotional capacity, the courage to synthesize them into genuine understanding or action. His intellectualism, all this vast, useless knowledge about deep-sea creatures and stars, it's a defense mechanism.
A way to avoid the real world.
It's a way to exist purely in the abstract, avoiding the messy, dangerous world of feeling and doing.
This fear of action, this intellectual paralysis, it also manifests physically and sexually too. The source gives us a really remarkable description of his sexual conflict.
It states that he achieves a delicate balance between the male and female elements, possessing the susceptibilities of both the sexes and the active powers of neither.
Wow, what does that even mean?
Well, it's critical. It means he experiences the emotional needs, the sensitivities, the roles typical of both genders in a relationship, the desire to be loved and the desire to dominate. But he is completely paralyzed when it comes to acting on any of those feelings.
So he can't lead, but he can't follow either.
He cannot assume a position of authority, nor can he truly submit. He's just stuck.
So if his internal scale is balanced between these elements, what ultimately tips it?
The source is very clear on this. Ultimately, his scale is heavily weighted toward death, making him a coward.
And this isn't just about physical fear.
No, not at all. It's an existential retreat from life, from risk, and from genuine feeling. He's a man who seeks avoidance, and that makes him profoundly dangerous because when he is forced to confront reality, he generates these extreme mechanisms of hatred and obsession just to cope.
And those mechanisms are most clearly seen in his marriage. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. This cowardice and repression lead to his sad penchant for becoming enamored of his wife's lovers. He doesn't just tolerate Major Langdon's affair with his wife, Leonora. He feels an emotional, complex regard for him.
Absolutely. He finds a form of vicarious passion in the relationship between Leonora and Langdon. Since he is incapable of experiencing pure, decisive love or passion himself, he feeds off the passion felt by the man who has taken his place.
So the love he feels for Langdon.
The love he harbors for Langdon, the man he should despise, is perhaps the closest thing to genuine, messy emotion he has ever known. He needs the torment, the humiliation, and the rivalry to structure his own feelings.
And this is the intense, inverted emotional life that Private Williams accidentally stumbles into, starting with, of all things, the oak tree incident.
Yes. This subtle resentment quickly boils over in a surprising incident involving a very specific landscaping detail. Williams was assigned to clear scrub oaks and low bushes behind the captain's house for a potential steak grill area.
The captain pointed out a beautiful, large oak marking the boundary, and he indicated that everything up to it should be cleared.
And Williams, with his simple, focused mind, worked steadily and efficiently. But in his diligence, he saw the graceful, down-sweeping limbs on the side facing the woods as obstructions. So he cut them off.
Effectively ruining the aesthetic vision Penderton had for the area.
Right. Williams applied logic to his task, not Penderton's nervous, finicky aesthetic.
And the captain's reaction to a few cut limbs was totally disproportionate. He was intensely agitated. His wife, Leonora, she perfectly understood the absurdity of her husband's neuroses and just publicly mocked him.
She gave Williams that now famous cutting piece of advice. The captain wants you to pick up the branches and sew them back on again.
Ouch!
But while Leonora laughs, Penderton's interior rage is just simmering. He internalizes this blunder as a personal assault, finding himself unable to work later that evening due to his intense restlessness.
And what does he do to cope with this petty rage? The source describes him indulging in this peevish daydream.
A dark fantasy.
Yeah, a dark fantasy of catching Private Williams, transgressing in some way, so that he could finally have him court-martialed.
And that fantasy offers him temporary consolation, confirming his capacity for imagined cruelty. But then the source introduces a truly disturbing anecdote from his past to relieve his continued restlessness, showing that this malice isn't new.
The kitten?
The kitten. He recalls picking up a purring kitten on a cold winter night, stroking its warm fur and looking into its clear green eyes, only to open the freezing letter slot and squeeze the kitten inside.
That is a staggering piece of information. Why would the author include that casual, almost cold-blooded memory right there?
It's vital symbolic evidence. The kitten anecdote establishes that Penderton's profound cowardice is paired with an equally profound capacity for sadism and malice.
So it's not just a reaction.
No, it shows his cruelty isn't simply reactive or desperate. It's casual, calculated, and directed specifically at the innocent and the helpless.
He takes pleasure in controlling something small and defenseless.
Which is exactly how he views Williams. Precisely. As a helpless pawn in his emotional game. This memory functions as a dark foreshadowing, confirming that he is indeed capable of the ultimate act of malice against the soldier.
That sets the stage for the psychological collapse. Now let's move to the center of this emotional maelstrom and the two intertwined officer households, starting with Leonora Penderton. She is the object of the affair, the subject of Williams' obsession, and the total contrast to her husband's frailty.
Leonora, or the lady, as the soldiers call her, is described as handsome, athletic, and possessing the bemused placidity of a Madonna's face. She embodies a kind of simple, brute physical vitality and contentment that utterly eludes her husband.
Yet the source reveals a fascinating hidden truth about her. She is a little feeble-minded.
This is a fact known only to her father, her husband, and Major Langdon. She can't multiply 12 by 13 and needs her houseboy Susie's help to compose simple letters. And this mental simplicity is crucial because it informs the dynamic of both her relationships.
So why does Langdon love her all the more for it?
Well, for Major Langdon, who is navigating a nightmare of complexity and neurosis with his own wife, Alison, Leonora's simplicity is a profound relief.
Right.
She is uncomplicated, honest in her appetites, and direct. She requires no psychological decoding. In her, he finds refuge from the exhausting world of emotional fragility.
But for Penderton, it's a source of deep shame and loathing.
Exactly. Penderton, the intellectual who prizes his knowledge of trilobites, finds her simplicity and intellectual embarrassment. He cannot respect her, and yet he is sexually and emotionally nullified by her raw vitality, which he can neither match nor control.
And Leonora uses that vitality as a weapon. She is completely aware of her husband's impotence and uses it to torment him.
Oh, absolutely. The source details a savage confrontation sparked by his irritation over her slovenliness.
And her response is just breathtaking aggression.
She laughs, rips off her jersey and breeches, standing completely naked before the hearth, a magnificent sight before the bright fire. This act is pure, savage dominance.
And then she delivers that devastating, challenging dismissal. Son, have you ever been collared and dragged out in the street and thrashed by a naked woman?
It's a statement that recognizes and exploits the deepest part of his flaw, his lack of active power. He is left trembling, looking on her with the stunned indignation of a man who has suffered a slap in the face.
She just reduces him to a frustrated, moralizing child, confirming her place as the undisputed center of physical power in the household.
And that physical power is what attracts Williams and repels Penderton. Meanwhile, next door, we find the Langdon household, which is defined not by physical dominance, but by illness and profound despair, centered on Major Langdon's wife, Alison.
Alison Langdon is described as small, dark, and fragile, suffering from both physical illness, heart trouble, and intense mental torture, placing her on the verge of actual lunacy.
Her suffering is rooted in this overwhelming grief and anxiety that have just consumed her. The source attributes this grief primarily to the traumatic death of her baby, Catherine, who was born with fused fingers.
That loss left her bitter and cold, but the depth of her despair is truly revealed in the secret act of self-mutilation she committed.
This is maybe the most shocking and visceral detail in the entire source material, and it demands analysis. During a moment of profound anguish, Alison ran home during a party and cut off the nipples of her breasts with garden shears.
Garden shears.
It's an act that signifies absolute despair and self-punishment, a rejection of her own body as a source of nurturing or motherhood, and the extreme secrecy around this trauma known only to the major, the doctor, the nurse, and her devoted houseboy becomes the central definition of her marriage failure.
Her husband's failure to truly see or process this horror ensures her terminal alienation.
Exactly.
And how does Major Langdon cope with a wife in such extreme emotional pain?
He struggles immensely. He views her unhappiness as merely morbid and female, and sees her profound emotional depths as something outside the realm of sensible military life. When he feels guilt about the affair, he soothes his conscience by immediately thinking of Alison's friend, Lieutenant Wincheck.
anything to avoid confronting the core devastation of his wife.
Yes. He even admits feeling relief when his baby died. His profound disconnect from Alison is the reason she is driven to such extremities.
Which finally brings us to Anacleto, Alison's Filipino houseboy, a figure of tremendous exoticism and devotion in this rigid military setting.
Anacleto is sickly, clever, and absolutely devoted to Alison. It's a love born from their time in the Philippines. He's the artistic observer, walking with grace in his aquamarine linen. He's fascinated by culture, listening to Mozart sonatas and Rachmaninoff, and teaching himself French.
And the French isn't just a hobby for him, though, is it? It's part of his cultural warfare against the Major.
Precisely. French, which he associates with high art, sensibility, and emotional nuance, is intentionally pitted against the Major's rigid military English.
A passive-aggressive jab.
A constant passive-aggressive jab at Langdon's brute, unthinking masculinity. He even performs a spontaneous ballet solo for Alison in her room. He had talent for painting, but lacked the necessary seriousness, perhaps reflecting his own marginalized position.
And his contempt for the Major is open. The houseboy calls Langdon idiot and engages in these deliberate, calculated acts of malice.
Like delaying the delivery of the Major's broth tray for 38 minutes so he could perfectly arrange flowers and bouillon cubes.
A silent war.
It's a silent war between the artistic and the authoritarian. But Anacleto also becomes the nexus point connecting Alison's house to Penderton's hidden life, though indirectly through Alison's knowledge.
Right. The final knot in this web is Captain Penderton's woeful shortcoming, his urge to steal, his kleptomania.
Penderton once succumbed during a dinner party, pocketing a delicately chased silver dessert spoon. And the key is that Alison, sitting right next to him, witnessed the theft.
She kept the secret, but her silence earned her Penderton's intense loathing.
Because he was permanently indebted to her for concealing his shame, and this debt fueled his absolute hatred for her.
This theft, this physical embodiment of his moral flaw, binds them together.
Absolutely. The spoon, later found hidden in the box that held his truss, a medical support garment, connects the moral shame of his action directly to the physical shame of his body. Alison's silence is a heavy price, and it makes her indispensable yet simultaneously detestable to him.
That detail about the spoon and the truss is just... It's physically revolting, yet psychologically perfect.
It summarizes his entire personality.
Yeah.
A man hiding his fundamental weakness, the truss, and his moral corruption, the spoon, in the same small space, living under the crippling fear that his secret is held by a woman he loathes.
Okay. Now we arrive at the pivotal moment that catalyzes the final tragedy. The night Private Williams first sees Leonora naked, he had been raised with these deep-seated religious and cultural beliefs that women carried a deadly and catching disease. So this sighting was an immediate traumatic shattering of his worldview.
It was a visual shock that triggered an immediate existential crisis. Williams, returning late after spreading leaves, saw Leonora stripped naked in the brightly lit vestibule. This wasn't just visual interest, it was a violation of a core tenet of his life.
And following this, Williams entered a new phase of obsession. He remained outside, staring through the window at Leonora during dinner, and the source notes a crucial shift in his expression.
He was narrowing his gold-brown eyes as though he were forming within himself some subtle scheme.
That subtle scheme immediately translates into physical manifestations back at the stables.
The sudden trance-like withdrawals.
Yes, where he became absolutely immovable. The sergeant worried he might go over the hill. And this state is significant because, as the source clarifies, it was a necessary precursor to every major, irreversible action in his life.
Buying the cow, the religious declaration, committing a crime, enlisting.
Every single one. This sexual sighting has initiated a pre-programmed, dark, decisive impulse for grand action.
And while Williams is entering his trance, Penderton is spiraling into a counter-ritual of self-punishment. He starts riding Firebird, Leonora's powerful, beautiful horse, an action he finds both terrifying and necessary.
He rides aggressively, forcing the horse into frantic gallops and then halting him sharply multiple times.
Classic self-penance. It's a strange and secret little punishment he exacts on himself, substituting physical torment for the emotional release he can't access through normal means. He seeks pain as a form of definition.
And during one of these rides, Firebird suddenly plunges down an embankment, throwing the captain forward. He completely loses control, just clinging desperately to the animal's back.
And this loss of control paradoxically leads to his moment of purest existence. While clinging desperately, the captain experiences this unprecedented, life-altering ecstasy, a great mad joy.
His senses sharpen. The world becomes a kaleidoscope. He notices a tiny white flower on the ground and feels the marvel of his own tense body.
He achieves a mystical state, one where the mystic feels that the earth is he and that he is the earth. This runaway ride born of terror is the closest the brilliant coward ever comes to true, courageous fulfillment and connection to life.
But because he is Penderton, this transcendence is instantly crushed. When the horse finally stops, exhausted, the captain just savages the animal, beating it until it gave a broken sigh.
The repression returns immediately, followed by that savage sadism we saw in the kitten anecdote.
And this act of violence is immediately followed by the second most fatal sighting.
Yes. Sobbing and recovering from his ride, the captain looks up to see Private Williams standing 2 yards away, completely naked.
This sighting reveals Williams's own ritual, taking an army horse to a secluded flat rock, stripping, and lying naked to soak up the sun, sometimes riding bareback with a sensual, savage smile on his lips.
Which confirms that Williams, too, seeks a profound sensual transcendence through the physical in the wild, much like Penderton did moments earlier on Firebird.
But the difference is that Williams's ritual is one of simple animal comfort and pleasure, while Penderton's is rooted in sadomasochistic torment.
Exactly. And when Penderton sees this, he's first paralyzed, then consumed by a rush of hatred as exorbitant as the joy he had experienced on Runaway Firebird. That hatred, he realizes, is a passionate, permanent force that will define the rest of his existence.
The stage is now perfectly set. That hatred fuels the captain's obsession. But for Williams, the visual stimulus of Leonora leads to immediate active transgression.
He begins his nightly vigil.
The source details his first physical transgression. He entered Leonora's room. He squatted silently by her bed, feeling a keen, strange sweetness.
And he remained there until almost dawn, only departing when he heard noises from the Langdons' house. This becomes his nightly, increasingly urgent ritual, a dark, drugged craving.
So now the psychological tension reaches its inevitable breaking point across both houses. Captain Penderton's obsession with the soldier accelerates into a full-blown mental and physical disease.
His decline is shocking. He develops a physical tic in his left eye, suffers teeth trouble, and his professional life just collapses entirely.
I mean, the most telling incident is the inexplicable attack of amnesia during a lecture. Chalk in hand, his mind goes blank, and he can only see William's face projected onto the chalkboard.
The external life is being completely consumed by the internal obsession.
And what's truly fascinating is the psychological reversal that occurs during this breakdown. For years, he whispered Major General Penderton to himself, dreaming of rank and validation.
Right.
Now he finds a perverse satisfaction in the words, Private Weldon Penderton.
He fantasizes about possessing the soldier's young, unburdened body, a body free of the complicated neuroses, the intellectual shackles, the fear that defined his own life. He yearns for the simple, sensual, decisive existence he projects onto Williams.
His daily walks past the barracks, slowing down to look at Williams, become this silent, perverse assignation where hatred and overwhelming, deeply repressed sexual desire have fused completely.
And this overwhelming obsession converges with Alison Langdon's final, tragic delusion.
Alison, paranoid and chronically ill, looked out her window late one night and again saw a shadow on the Pendertons' lawn.
And she was so ill and angry that she didn't pause for reason. Her delusion, fueled by her despair, convinced her that the skulker was her own husband, Major Langdon, sneaking in to be with Leonora.
It was the only framework she had left to understand the chaos. Right.
So she immediately goes next door, putting on a coat over her nightgown. She enters Leonora's room and switches on the light, only to find Private Williams squatting silently by the bedside.
The reality is so much stranger than her paranoia.
That moment, realizing the skulker was not her husband, but this silent, animalistic soldier, must have completely shattered Alison's remaining grip on reality.
So she backed out, confronting Captain Penderton in his study, expecting him to explain this bizarre, terrifying truth.
But Penderton, already primed by his own paranoia that Major Langdon was indeed being willy-nilly with his wife, completely misinterpreted her plea. He assumed she meant the Major was with Leonora, and, determined to maintain a show of composure, he flatly denied everything she was saying.
This denial seals her fate. Alison denied the truth of what she had seen. The soldier, not her husband, was then escorted home by the captain, utterly bewildered and rejected.
And the Post, receiving the official story of Alison's midnight visit, decides she has altogether lost her mind.
She then tells the Major she is divorcing him, detailing these absurd business plans with Anna Clodo running a prawn boat, opening a bookshop, and demanding a large loan.
Delusional schemes,
Mhm.
but they reflect a genuine, desperate need for independence and a connection with Anacleto, who is perhaps the only person who truly understands her pain.
The Major, ashamed and desperate, agrees to send her to an astonishingly expensive sanatorium in Virginia. Her tragedy concludes there. Her final words to her husband, spoken at dinner in the sanatorium, were just chilling.
What were they?
My God, what a choice crew.
Wow. That line is her final, definitive assessment of the entire post. The whole system of repression, hypocrisy, and neurosis, including her husband and herself.
A complete and total indictment before her final escape. She dies of a heart attack 2 nights later.
And the fallout continues. Anacleto, the devoted houseboy, repacked Alison's things and then vanished completely from the sanatorium, leaving Major Langdon distraught and filled with this uncomfortable remorse.
Even though the Major secretly despised the Filipinos' unmanly, artistic nature, Anacoleto's disappearance leaves a gaping hole.
It's during this somber aftermath that Captain Penderton provides a final moment of cold, philosophical clarity. While discussing Anacleto's flight and artistic nature, the Major argues that Anacleto should have enlisted, stating that any fulfillment obtained at the expense of normalcy is wrong.
Langdon is still clinging to the idea that structure and conformity are mandatory for moral balance.
But Penderton, having seen his own grotesque inner life without the option of altering it, flatly disagrees. He just says, "I don't agree."
And he looks into his soul and sees this distorted, doll-like image, mean of countenance and grotesque in form, and accepts it without compassion. He accepted it with neither alteration nor excuse.
The brilliant coward is finally free of the need for moral pretense. The repression is over, and now only action remains.
With Alison dead, Anacleto gone, and Penderton accepting his grotesque nature, the stage is set for the final, violent convergence between the captain and the soldier.
Right. Private Williams, having spent 6 previous nights in Leonora's room, had become volatile and sleepless in the barracks.
The combination of the pressure from his obsession and the lack of rest led to a profound change in his personality. He was provoking fights, notably punching a man who was trying to use a commode, reflecting the culmination of the dark, drugged craving that had defined his last week. He was pushed to his limit.
So he decides to return to Leonora's room for the 7th and final time. He was walking faster than usual, and in the dark he stumbled into a recently dug hole outside the captain's house.
Arriving scratched, breathless, and fully focused on his objective.
Meanwhile, Captain Penderton had orchestrated his own descent into semi-delirium. He had taken a triple dose of Seconal, a powerful barbiturate, and was slightly drunk on brandy.
He was also wearing the coarsest sleeping garments, a wrapper of rough black wool and stiff canvas pajamas, as if ready for some dark monastic ritual.
And the combination of drug and alcohol gave him a unique and voluptuous sensation, which he describes in one of the source material's most striking pieces of imagery. He felt a great, dark bird alighted on his chest, looked at him once with fierce golden eyes, and stealthily enfolded him in his dark wings.
That image is so potent. It's the symbolic arrival of fate or death, ushered in by his drug-induced state. This vision of the golden eyes is a powerful reference point for the title itself, showing Penderton's final perception is distorted, beautiful, and fatalistic.
He was awake, listening to the wind, when he saw the flicker of a tiny flame. Williams, needing to get his bearings after falling into the hole, had struck a match.
And in that split second of light, Penderton saw the soldier's face.
The visual confirmation made him stop his breath. He went to Leonora's door and saw the silhouette of the man inside. And the source emphasizes that in that instant, his mind abandoned surprise.
He felt he understood beforehand in some supernatural way that this was the end.
The final, murderous culmination of the obsession had arrived, and he was ready to embrace it.
So Penderton retrieves his pistol from the drawer of his bed table, the same drawer, we might infer, that held the handkerchief-wrapped stolen silver spoon, connecting his final act of violence to his lifelong hidden moral shame.
He crosses the hall, switches on the light in Leonora's room, and confronts the soldier. Private Williams was still squatting.
And crucially, he does not show fear. His expression is one of dazed annoyance, as if he had been inexcusably disturbed.
His trance state, his dark craving, was more powerful than any fear of death.
The captain, despite his overall cowardice, was a skilled marksman. He shot twice, leaving only one raw hole in the center of the soldier's chest.
And the resulting tableau is just horrifyingly beautiful. Leonora was half-roused, staring as if she were witnessing some scene in a play, utterly indifferent to the violence. Major Langdon hurried up the stairs in slippers.
And the captain slumped against the wall, looking like a broken and dissipated monk. The soldier's body, even in death, had a look of warm animal comfort.
The grotesque internal lives had finally resulted in a decisive external action that served as the final release for Penderton.
So if we synthesize this entire dive, we see a study in repression. The contrast between the boring, monotonous military post and the deep, hidden, secret lives of these 7 figures, their obsessions, their psychological wounds, their cruelty, is the core fuel for the eventual violence.
And we see that the character's deep hidden needs provided the entire structure for this tragedy. Penderton needed love through hate. Williams needed sensual animalistic transcendence. Alison needed justice and escape.
All these needs converged on Leonora's bed, the locus of indifferent, brutal vitality which served as the ultimate catalyst.
And of course the title itself, Reflections in a Golden Eye. As we noted in the climax, that final fatal moment is illuminated by this phrase. We should probably break down the 3 primary symbolic meanings.
Let's do it.
First, the most immediate reference is the captain's drug-induced vision. The great dark bird with fierce golden eyes represents death, fate, and the final liberation from his tormented self.
It signifies his own distorted, fevered perception of reality in the moments leading up to the murder.
Second, we have the captain's fear reflected in Firebird. The source often notes Firebird's purple eyes. When the horse is terrified or running away, those eyes reflect the captain's own frightened face back at him.
It's a reflection of Penderton's profound, debilitating fear, the core of his being, seen through the animal he both loves and tortures.
And third, the most direct reference is Private Williams himself. His eyes are described as curious amber and brown, or gold brown.
He is the golden eye.
He's the golden eye, the primal observer through which the entire tragedy is witnessed and initiated. It is Williams's vision of Leonora that starts the fatal scheme, and Williams' presence that becomes the fatal reflection Penderton must destroy to gain his final cold peace.
This incredible density of symbolism makes the story so much more than a simple murder plot. It's a deep exploration of the impossibility of achieving normalcy when the inner life is so profoundly broken and strange.
And what we're left with is the shock of the final act. Williams is not a villain. He is a force of nature, driven by this pre-programmed compulsion.
And Penderton is a coward, driven to a single act of courage, the murder, to define his otherwise meaningless existence.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've seen how this story reveals a world where actions are not governed by logic or duty, but by these deeply unconscious cravings that cannot be suppressed. And on that note, we'll leave you with one final, deeply bizarre detail from the source material. Remember Private Williams, squatting by the bed just moments before Penderton walked in and shot him. Williams was contemplating a bureau full of Leonora's cosmetics, touching a brown strand of her hair, and had picked up an atomizer and taken a bite from a half-eaten chicken leg that lay on the table.
He was enacting some final bizarre ritual, a collision of the spiritual, the sensual, and the utterly mundane. The source describes it as a dark, drugged craving.
So here's the thought. Was the captain's bullet the only thing that could have broken that soldier's strange, drugged craving? Or was Williams, now fully possessing the object of his animal comfort through these strange tokens, already past the point of return, performing a final internal ceremony that death merely concluded? Mull on that, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.